You know how sometimes we watch horror movies or hear stories that say, based on a true horror story at the end? It really freaks us out, right? We always hope that the story we're hearing is just fiction and has nothing to do with real life. But I'm really sorry to say, I've got a story for you today that isn't just made up. The story is based on true events. There's this really famous hotel in the US called the Stanley Hotel. Stephen King used to stay there, and it's where he wrote the book The Shining. He even experienced some paranormal stuff while he was there. Lightly, it's not just about the paranormal incidents. Every room in Stanley Hotel has some kind of hidden presence. There are dark shadows that roam around every night. You're always wandering around, whether it's in the morning, afternoon, or at night. You're bound to run into them. But today, I've got a story to share with you about the Stanley Hotel. Of course, it's about a couple who went through some really deep trauma. Even after leaving that place, they couldn't shake off the memories. They faced a lot there. This isn't just any story, it's a real chilling tale that you're about to hear. So, before we dive into this video, let's get started. To watch more horror, mysterious, and historical videos, make sure to subscribe to this channel. So here's the story. Many years ago, around 1972, there was a couple named Alan and Gloria who lived in the US. They had been in a relationship for a few years, but they weren't married yet. Still, they wanted to celebrate their one-year anniversary, so they decided to spend some quality time together, just the two of them. The prices at the other luxury hotels were really high, but right next to them was a hotel called the Stanley Hotel. It was also a 5-star hotel, but its prices were way lower, super cheap actually. Every room was really affordable. Now the weird thing about the Stanley Hotel is that not many people come and go there because this area is mostly covered in snow. It's pretty isolated, but still it's a 5-star hotel. So the thing is, they were heading into that hotel. Once they walked into the hotel, they realized it wasn't anything special. There were just a few staff members and some guests who were there to stay. Other than that, it was pretty empty. When they looked at the board to see which rooms were available, they found that almost all the rooms were open. So, it was clear they could get whatever they asked for. After they made their payment and requested a room key, they got one that had room 218 written on it. With that key, they headed off to their room. They headed towards the room, which was obviously on the 2nd floor. To get there, they had to take the stairs since there was no elevator in that hotel at the time. So they were climbing up the stairs. But when they finally reached the 2nd floor, they noticed that there was literally no one around. I mean, there might have been people on other floors, but here it was completely silent. Even the voices of Gloria and the others talking echoed, like there was no one else around to hear them. At least they should have heard them, or we should have heard them, but still, these guys were kind of ignoring the fact that, okay, no one else is around, so let's just enjoy ourselves more. I mean, it's fine if no one is here, right? So, they put the key in the door and opened it. Once they went inside, they saw that the room was super clean, like seriously spotless, as if someone with OCD had cleaned it. I mean, it was like a person who can't stand any mess at all had been in there. It was all nice and tidy, but those two, being a couple, went inside and just tossed their bags and clothes everywhere. They had thrown off their court clothes because of the cold and then just sat down. Since they were alone in that room, things got pretty intimate between them. But suddenly, Alan felt like they weren't alone anymore. He turned to Gloria and said, "I have this weird feeling that it's not just us here. We can see each other, but I feel like there's someone else around." Then Alan started to think maybe I might have left the door open and maybe a housekeeper peeked in and quickly slipped out. It's possible he didn't look back and thought no one was there. Then he went to the door and saw it was closed. How could that happen? But Alan was pretty sure he felt someone's presence. So, he got up from his bed and started checking every corner of the house to see if someone accidentally came in. He looked everywhere, but didn't find anything. Then he went to check again. He went into the bathroom, but found nothing there. When he came out, he noticed that Gloria wasn't in his room. Then he saw Gloria coming in from outside, and she said, "I thought I heard kids playing outside. So I went out to check, but there were no kids out there. It was really noisy, and it felt so strange." At that moment, Alan and Gloria were both in a really different headspace, like they felt something sudden had happened. "What's going on?" And Alan even said, "Look, I'm not going crazy, but I definitely felt a presence." Finally, those two were sleeping at night, totally exhausted from everything. Alan was deep in sleep, but he could still hear something in his ears. An old woman was whispering something to him. He suddenly opened his eyes and looked around, but there was nobody there, just darkness. He was peering closely, but all he saw was pure darkness. He got up from his bed, feeling a little. He walked around the room for a bit, then started heading back to bed. But then he heard kids playing outside his room. He looked at the clock. It was 2 a.m. Who plays at this hour? That was impossible. He thought, but still, I should at least check to see who it is. So he opened the door and stepped outside. It was pitch black, and there was nothing there. He thought, maybe this is too much. Either there's some dark shadow lurking in this whole hotel, or there's something seriously wrong here. As I was about to go inside, I caught a glimpse out of the corner of my eye and saw a little girl standing right in the middle of the corridor. She was just staring at me. I shouted, "It's really late. What are you doing here?" She didn't say anything, just kept eye contact with me. I started walking closer to her, trying to talk, but before I could reach her, I heard a scream coming from my room. I rushed inside, and as soon as I entered, I saw an old woman choking Gloria. As soon as that old woman realized that another person had just entered the room and she could see them, she immediately went over to a window and then just vanished, becoming invisible right in front of them. Seeing all this, both Alan and Gloria were shaken. It was around 2:30 in the morning, and of course, they were both busy packing their backpacks, thinking about getting out of there. They were really scared. Then, as they started to head down the stairs, they were just about to leave the hotel when the guy at the reception, he was standing there when they stopped him and said, "Sir, where are you going out at this late hour? It's snowing heavily outside." He replied, "Well, all this stuff has been happening to us." He went on to share the whole story, saying that from morning until now, they've only seen the shadow of ghosts lurking around. The receptionist told him, "Show me your key." He showed it, and on that key, it was written room 219. The receptionist was a bit shocked when he saw it, but he quickly realized what was going on with them. So the receptionist said, "I know what happened to you. Back in 1911, there was a lady who worked here named Mrs. Wilson. She took really good care of your room, room 219, and kept it spotless. She treated it like her own space. Now, Mrs. Wilson had some old-fashioned beliefs, and she never wanted any unmarried couples to stay in her room. She didn't want anyone coming in and doing anything inappropriate that would mess it up. It got all messed up, and that's exactly what Mrs. Wilson didn't like. There had been an explosion in that room, but somehow Mrs. Wilson survived it. Still, she managed to fix up that room again. Years later, when Mrs. Wilson passed away, people still said they'd see a lot of guests in that room. By the way, there was this old woman who was seen cleaning up and sweeping the floor in the middle of the night, like around 2 or 3 a.m. Just seeing that would send chills down anyone's spine, and that's what happened. The manager even mentioned that. Look, let's just agree that there are definitely all these things here like ghosts and spirits. And what you mentioned about seeing a little girl, yeah, she's around here too, near those stairs. She died here, and her spirit is still wandering around. But as hotel staff, we always make sure that no one gets scared. It's possible that the guy working the afternoon shift just handed you the key without knowing what goes on around here. You know, since I work here at night, I'm always dealing with them. These days, I don't even wander around or go anywhere. The staff just stays in their rooms. They only come out for really important stuff. We all know that if we step outside, they'll target us. And it's not just that. When Alan and Gloria finally got home, they started digging even deeper into what's been happening here, like in this hotel. So here's the deal. The hotel's room 219 and the staircase are definitely haunted, but there are other haunted spots too, like rooms 401, 428, and 407. The staff totally agrees that it's haunted. They even have brochures that say all this stuff is haunted. Oh, and by the way, Stephen King, the famous author who wrote The Shining, has stayed at this hotel too. It was written here, The Shining, and later they told the whole world about the paranormal incidents that happened here. There were some literal incidents too. A very famous Hollywood actor, Jim Carrey, stayed here, but only for a few hours. Then he ran out of here and never talked about what happened to him. Now, at the end of this video, I just want to say that you might be thinking about going somewhere special for an occasion.